Lauren is not actually dead. Effie should probably count her days. And Tariq is about to be the biggest boss New York has ever seen. What's good, y'all? It's your good sis Erica Vane coming to you right here on Erica Vane TV with another Power Book 2 Ghost video. In this video, I'm breaking down in depth, child. So grab a snack and a drink because we're going in depth for episode 1, the season premiere for season 3 of Power Book 2 Ghosts. If you're new here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, turn on your bell notifications so you don't miss out on any of my Power Book 2 Ghost content. I'm your good sis you love to talk TV with, and we're going to have some bomb ass conversations throughout the course of season 3's premiere and beyond. Previously, I have broken down all of the seasons of Power Book 2 Ghosts, and I am going back and recapping Power as well. So there's tons of Power Universe content on my channel. Go ahead and subscribe and join the tribe. Now for this video, because the episode was utterly amazing, the premiere episode was phenomenal. It gave feature film vibes. It has a stunning 63-minute runtime. Like, that is insane when you really sit down and think about the amount of content they gave us for the premiere episode. But it also makes sense because the series has been gone for almost 18 months. So it makes sense that they came back with a bang. But because there is so much information, so much that has happened, I decided to structure this video by character. So I'm going to go down a list of characters in this universe, specifically that popped up in this episode, and we are going to talk about them in sections. You can check the timestamps after you watch this video. If you want to go back and hear something else about a specific character, I will have the timestamps by character in the description box down below, so that's easy to navigate. Again, grab a snack, grab a drink, settle in, let's chop it up. And at any point during this video, feel free to drop down in the comment sections and share your thoughts. I would love it if you would put the timestamp and then your thoughts so I know exactly what you're responding to, because sometimes it gets confusing for me, y'all. But even if you don't put the timestamp, just drop in your comment. Let me know what you think, what you're predicting, what you are feeling, all of that, because we like to keep the conversations going here, and I will be replying to every single comment on this video. So don't be afraid. Jump down in the comment section and let your voice be known. Now, without further ado, we're going to start at the top. And we're going to start with Jenny Sullivan. She is responsible for one of the most well-kept secrets, plot twists, OMG moments in this iteration of the Power universe, with the fact that Lauren Baldwin is not actually dead. We learn about this in this episode because at the end of the episode, Jenny is seen going to some random country house that she has her stashed in to visit Lauren, and Lauren's words are, "How long do I have to pretend that I'm dead?" And we know that this is it's been 3 months since Zeke's death, since Mecca's death, since Lauren's accidental death, air quotes, and disappearance. And Jenny says, like, your parents, everyone thinks that you're dead, including Cooper Saxe, who's supposed to be working to avenge Lauren and Carrie's death. And in this episode, you can see a very different demeanor from Jenny, which I thought was very, very interesting. I went back and watched the season finale of season 2, and she really did she played the part amazingly, honestly. When she came to Cooper Saxe and told him that Lauren was dead, and she was crying and boo-hooing and getting him on her side in reference to going to take down the Tejadas and Tariq behind this because they're definitely responsible, she just did not hold back and release. But when we see her in this episode, specifically in this season, which is 3 months later, and they have not made any traction in any of the investigations, she has no additional information, you can see she's a lot less emotional. She's a lot less caring and like stepping on eggshells when it comes to sex. She's a little bit more cutthroat and like, I'm not having sex with you, especially because we don't have no information. We've been sitting here all day and you come up with nothing. Like, you need to give me something. And even in the moments when she's talking with Saxe and then he gets a call from Davis, she gets irritated because Saxe turns to her like, yo, can you figure out who's sitting on Dante's penthouse? And he's like, she's like, bruh, you have not given me anything, and now you're asking me for additional things. And she has that attitude with her. So I think that we're going to start to see a much different Jenny in this episode. And I think that it's interesting because when I went back to watch the season finale in season 2, I also noted how Cooper came clean about what he did to Ghost to her, cool. But he also employed her about like, don't get too caught up. Like, you might want to go ahead and take this L versus staking your life's work and staking all of your purpose to going after this particular dude, this family, and all of that, because it can change you. And I do believe that this episode set off a perfect like start for Jenny's low-key descent. Now, she is definitely giving a integrous, above reproach, and she's going to do her job, and she's not going to try to cut too many corners. She's not going to give what Cooper Saxe was given in the original power. However, I do believe in this first episode, they opened the door to that potentially being a thing. Now, for her specifically, her major moment was us finding out about Lauren and Lauren not actually being dead, so we know that she's lying to Cooper Saxe. Cool. But then we also get her ran down on by Blanca. Saxe asks her to check and see who's doing it. That look into that, she finds out that it's Whitman, but then Blanca's also like, what is going on, and why y'all bothering what I have going on tied to my CI? Blanca and Jenny wind up catching each other up to where each other's at, and then Jenny pitches like, yo, let's do a joint task force. If you got the pull, let's do a joint task force between federal and local, which they actually make happen, which puts a little bit more wind in the sails of basically Jenny's dying investigation, and also creates a space for her to need Saxe less, which is going to put Saxe in a very dangerous position, in my opinion. Now, there's a lot of talk around who is Jenny's CI, because she talks to Blanca about having a CI in the organization. I created a video about Effie, and if Effie is actually the rep, because how in the hell is Lauren still alive if Effie was supposed to kill her, because she knew that Brayden wasn't going to be able to do so. So if you want to go into that conversation, and I explain all of the potential opportunities and storylines that would make that a case or not make that the case, then go ahead and check it out. I'll have it linked in the description box down below, as well as the cards above. But in my opinion right now, I think that she is referring to Cooper Saxe as her CI. Lauren is not actively attached to Tariq. Nobody knows that she's still alive, so she would not count. And I also am not sure if Lauren actually remembers anything. So like, I am creating a video as well to talk about where we're at with Lauren in her timeline, how she actually survived, what could have happened leading up to her attempted murder, and then what has been happening for her in the last 3 months up until the point that we see her in episode 1. Again, if you're not subscribed, you need to go ahead and subscribe, because I have content on content on content to break down everything happening in this marvelous universe. And that's where we're at with Jenny Sullivan at the start of this season. Saxe is proving himself to be less and less important, needed, and or necessary. She's getting another ally in Blanca Rodriguez, who I've been wanting to catch a bullet for a while, just because she annoys me, but that's just me. Let me know how y'all feel about Blanca in the comment section down below. And she also has a moment to check Whitman, and he's going to be somebody that we need to pay attention to. He might not be super prevalent, but he's still cooking in the background because he still feels a way about Carrie and her death. And he's tied in to the whole Jenny Sullivan-ness of it all. So the police presence and potential pressure is also increasing, as we have seen the stakes, the product, and the potential amount of profits increase coming into season 3. Everything is bigger, y'all. Every single thing is bigger. Now, moving on, we're going to talk about Saxe, because we can't talk about Jenny without talking about Saxe. Saxe is in a very interesting position at the start of this season, because he doesn't really have a hell of a lot to fight for. He's not fully convicted, it seems. So I completely understood when Jenny asks, like, what are you doing? Why haven't you figured out anything? Because when he has a fire lit up under his butt to get to the bottom of something, or he wants to see justice prevail or somebody be held accountable, he makes some happen. And it seems like in the last 3 months, he's kind of been coasting. He's also put Jenny in a position to do hella harm to him just by revealing, like, he actually was planning on going to go kill Ghost before somebody actually beat him to it. And he also planted, information, all types of stuff. Like, he just basically revealed entirely too much for this woman to not be on his side, even though he don't know that. So I'm like intrigued about which way Saxe could go, because while I understand him kind of like being motivated to help Jenny, because 1, he has fallen in love with her, and 2, he doesn't like the fact that Carrie and Lauren, both super civilians, super innocent in this whole thing, are supposedly dead, because we know that Lauren's not dead, right? that gives him a way to try to atone for all of the transgressions that he had in the past. I also feel like it's going to come out sooner rather than later that Gianni is playing him, or he's going to start to feel it in sense certain things, just because her demeanor towards him has changed. They have stopped having sex. Like, I'm assuming they haven't had sex this whole entire summer since the last time, because he mentions in this episode that they have not actually had sex. So in addition to being in a interesting, weird, kind of like a strange space from Gianni emotionally, not making any traction in reference to the case, her hiding information from him. He's also at the law firm with Davis, and Davis is no longer inviting him into meetings. Like, he walks past the meeting with Davis and Tariq, and he can't go in because he wasn't invited in, and Davis doesn't disclose to him why he needs additional information. Davis wants him to focus on his brother, Theo Rollins. So for the most part, everybody that matters to Saxe is kind of like keeping him at an arm's length. So in Davis keeping him at an arm's length is hindering what he can give to Gianni. And with Gianni keeping him at an arm's length, it's hindering him fulfilling his whole, I guess, created purpose in this moment to like avenge these innocent souls and actually make right this whole entire journey that he has been on for the last however many years when it comes to going after and prosecuting the St. Patrick and now the Tejada family. I think that Saxe could still wind up being a very dangerous character as he has been in previous seasons. However, it's going to be a slow burn in reference to how he fits into the wheel as a cog for things playing out. I don't think that he's the most dangerous member of like the police force, even though we know he's on the other side now, but now trying to like support Gianni and like backdoor his way into being on the right side of this. I definitely think that Gianni with the backup of Blanca are going to be the huge big bad issues when it comes to the police force. However, Saxe, if he gets to a place of feeling alienated and feeling discarded, he could go scorch earth to everybody, including himself. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's something that pans out by the end of this season. Now on to our new favorite attorney in the Power universe, Davis McClain. And I didn't think that we was going to get anybody that we just absolutely loved and root for as much as we did Proctor, but you hired Method Man if you needed to go ahead and fill that void, and that's what they did. The top of this episode, we get to see 3 months ago, so shortly after all of the deaths that took place, Tariq, handed off the ring, asked Davis to help him offload it, and he does. He calls up a contact, which ultimately gets the ring to land at an auction, a high-end auction, where some random white man acquires it for $5.5 million and thinks that it's the best, brightest idea ever to take his behind to Central Park at midnight and propose to his lovely little white lady with no security around, and then ultimately get compromised, get robbed, and then get killed by way of this. But Davis did his job. He got the ring sold, and that actually worked out. In this episode, most of what we see is Tariq and Davis having to come back together because of the whole ring situation, and Tariq, being threatened by Noma and threatening Davis to like help him, and then his payment is for Tariq to not bring his name up in reference to being tied to how the ring actually made it to the auction house. But the even bigger part for Davis, I think, in this episode is what's happening with his brother. And now we have a huge ticking clock. His brother has been diagnosed with hepatitis, multiple strands of hepatitis, and is given at the max a year to live. And Davis wants to get him into some type of revolutionary clinical trial. However, he cannot do so while he's still locked up. And it has been 3 months, at least 3 months, since Davis handed over this case to Saxe and said Saxe needed to figure out how to make it work, how to get him out. Now, last season, we saw that Saxe was like, there's so many things that are wrong with this case, so it should have been a thing of him being able to get him out quickly. However, that hasn't happened. And in this episode, we get to see Davis call Saxe like, yo, it needs to happen. It needs to happen now. Stop whatever the hell it is you doing and get on it, because time's a ticking. And I think that this is going to be the biggest driving factor for Davis within this season. Now, there is the looming threat of like Noma, and is Tariq gonna say something? Is Tariq not gonna say something? Okay, cool. And he's supposed to supply information on Noma. now that, Tariq has disclosed this. However, his biggest thing, again, is going to be getting his brother out and getting his brother into this program to try to save his life. Now, I think what's the interesting thing about this is, like, what could have been done that Davis feels so indebted to his brother in this way. Now, they alluded to this in previous seasons that Theo was basically in jail because he took the rap for Davis, and Davis still feels guilty. I could totally see him having tons of survivor's remorse because he's this amazingly powerful, prolific, visible, defense attorney in New York while his brother is basically rotting in jail and sick. But I want to know what actually went down, and what kept Theo so loyal to Davis where he didn't say anything and he would prefer to stay in jail and have Davis stay out, and why does Davis feel so indebted to him? So I cannot wait to see how this actually pans out, because I do think that this is the season that we're going to get all of that information. They've been teasing Theo for quite a while, and this is the season in which that is actually going to come to the forefront. Now, Davis is still a little entangled with the Tejada family because we get to see him take a visit over to the house to let Monet know that she has inherited Dante's penthouse by default. And we learn that this is actually just a plan that Blanca had in motion to figure out who was going to actually end up with the property, because Dante left it to Zeke. And of course, Zeke died. Now that reverts back to his biological mother. Blanca has this penthouse because everything else is not released, everything else is seized, but this so that she can prop up her investigation. And Davis is a little bit tied in with the Tejada family in delivering this news and keeping his ear to the street and providing Monet with additional information. All right, y'all, now let's talk about Noma. The big bad from Britain that has arrived in the Power Book 2 Ghost universe. I feel like she might be the biggest bad of them all. She's given very much so scary. She's given very much so supported. She got the henchman Obi that's at her right side. Like, yeah, it's nothing. And all y'all Americans are crass. Reason enough for me to kill you. I mentioned, the death at the start of the episode, which is the white couple, and she takes the ring back. Come to find out, y'all, this blue diamond, while it is exquisite, while it is unique, while it is clearly worth quite a lot, and we knew Mecca had plans to give it to Monet. Apparently, it was originally meant for Miss Noma. Noma comes back and takes her ring when she could have probably bought it at the auction. However, why would I pay for something that actually belongs to me? So go ahead and hand it over. Oh, y'all want to talk slick in the middle of Central Park? Okay, cool. I'm going to take your hand. Then I'm going to take your ring off of it and then enjoy the afterlife. Like, what? Noma and her crew enters the Power Universe in this first episode, again, in this electrifying way. And by the end of it, basically has set the stage for additional pressure. And again, the raising of stakes in Tariq's life, the Tejada life, everybody. Because basically, all of them are going to die. Well, specifically, Tariq, Brayden, and Caden are going to die if they cannot fill the void that Dante's death has left in her organization. Not only was he her lover, supposed to be her potential fiance, but he was her biggest mover in reference to product. And not only is she short a lover and a fiance and a plan for the wedding or whatever the hell she had in her mind, she's short her product and her profits, which the crew had already taken to their own, taken advantage of and made money off of. So technically y'all owed her anyway. It's this really dope scene towards the middle of the episode where Noma and Obi and the crew comes in while Tariq, Brayden, and Kane are meeting at the penthouse and basically lay everything out. Now, it is the guys who let her know, like, yo, we could literally be everything and more than what Mecca was to you. We got you. And that includes informing to the police. So, like, I had to go back. I rewatched this episode quite a few times because it was just that good. But, like, watching Tariq admitting to ratting, watching, like, Kane kind of, like, co-sign that, I'm just also looking at them like, wow, it's one thing to tell her that y'all will move all her product, you will give her the best profit or whatever, but it's another to also to agree to utilizing your contacts in law enforcement as well as within the judicial system. Like, y'all literally have signed up to be rats. Meanwhile, y'all running around left and right trying to take out every rat you can see. So who coming to kill y'all? I'm just curious. I'm really just curious. Now, I think that, of course, in the moment of begging for your life and to not be killed and you want to be spared in this moment, you're going to say anything to actually make that happen. I think the real conflict is going to come when it comes to Noma and Tariq, the Tejadas, their whole newly formed crew, and moving weight for her is not going to be in how they can actually move the product, even though that's what they alluded to with a lot of the trailers and previews and stuff like that. I think that the real conflict is going to come when they have to rat on the competition, when they have to go to the police and give additional information, because I personally believe like it's ingrained in Kane to never be a rat. Like, Brayden, you went on the stand. I mean, granted, you did it for Tariq. However, you went on the stand and took all the brunt on yourself to stop your brother from being a rat and to stay really true to the game and to your homie. So, like, at what point are y'all going to come to grips and be okay with this woman telling y'all that you now got to go and snitch on the competition, snitch on this, snitch on that, and y'all gonna be 100% cool with it? That the math ain't mathing for me. But that is what happens when it comes to Noma in this episode. What I'm most intrigued about, honestly, is something that did not actually happen in the episode. Aside from us getting the information about Noma being Mecca's potential fiance, I am now excited for when Noma meets Monet, because it was very clear that Mecca was in love with Monet, wanted a second chance with Monet, and had a plan to build his family, which I don't know what the hell he was planning to do if it had actually worked out, with Noma tucked in the wings expecting a wedding very soon. But I think it's going to be hell to pay, and fireworks are going to go off when Noma meets the actual love of Mecca's life, and Monet don't give a damn about that man. And not only does she not give a damn about that man, she's the one who actually put the bullet in that man. It's the anticipation for me that is creating the most amount of energy and really pushing forward the idea of Noma as the big bad villain. Because for Monet to be the position that she had in season 2, well, actually up until now, seasons 1 and 2, and to now be confronted with another female powerhouse, it's gonna be crazy, y'all. Point blank, period. And I'm excited to see it. Now, if you want to have a conversation about when Noma meets Monet, I have a video for that linked in the cards above, as well as the description box down below, where I'm going into depth about what my thoughts and predictions and theories are about that potential meetup and what's going to happen as a result of that meetup. I would love for y'all to check it out after you finish this video. Finish this video, and then there's plenty more videos. Just know that. Now, before I get off of Noma, I also have to mention in just Obi, who is looks like her first lieutenant and is down to do whatever she asks. However, there's quite a few times in this first episode where he kind of questions her a little bit. So you could see that he's a loyal soldier. However, he has a mind of his own as well. And he's going to kind of push back. And it's going to be interesting to see them in this particular world, cultivating relationships. As we saw in this episode, he's the lead point in reference to getting the drugs over to the crew. As he learns additional information about everybody involved, about New York and how the whole thing happens, as the infrastructure is built out, is he going to have certain perspectives and thoughts that are not as tied to emotional reasons like Noma has, and then they create a little internal conflict within their organization? I don't know. This is just something that came up, and I thought that I was going to mention it. Now, moving on to Miss Effie. Effie, my dear, you are in trouble, I fear. And I knew that you didn't actually kill Lauren. However, Stars was working overtime to convince us. So at the end, I was just kind of like, oh, well, whatever. If she did, she did. Whatever. Don't really care. However, I knew in my heart's a heart. However, this is going to be bad for her. Now, I have a video where I'm breaking down all of the lies that are happening within all of the crew. So between Tariq, Brayden, Effie, then Kane, and all the Tejadas, because Brett Mahoney, the current showrunner, so season 3 showrunner of Power Book 2 Ghosts, was on the Crew Has Its live premiere podcast.
Well, I think the big thing this season that makes it different than other seasons is we have the big bad Noma. We also have another sort of big bad. But really, this season, what we tried to do is the big bad, you're each other's big bad eventually. So these secrets that you're keeping from one another, they're the things that are going to drive you against one another.
We detrimental to her as well.
Yep.
And he mentioned how Noma's the first big bad. They have another big bad coming, but then also the way they wrote this season, everybody is each other's big bads. And I was like wondering, what did that mean, or how could that possibly be? And I think that is going to come into fruition when you think about the lies that are going on interpersonally and what type of major consequences that they will have. One, it's a crazy thing if Tariq was to find out that Effie actually killed Lauren. That's one thing. But to find out that Effie tried to kill Lauren, didn't actually kill Lauren, and then they built their relationship after the fact completely on lies is going to be something that completely shakes up Tariq's world. This will be the thing that makes sure that Tariq never trusts Effie again, but also could be the thing that puts Tariq in a mode to want to kill Effie. I could totally see that happening. Now, in that she was the one who also revealed to Kane, like, Lauren caught y'all on the wire, and then set all those things in motion in reference to trying to get Kane getting Brayden to go kill it, and her having to take over because she knew that Brayden wasn't going to be able to do it. It's going to back up on her as well, because she was supposed to be taken care of, and then now she's not. She's still around and able to talk. So not only is Effie going to have issues with Tariq, she's going to have issues with Kane. And Brayden, he's not really going to be the one to keep up too much smoke. However, again, they're all under the idea or under the perception that Lauren is dead and at the hands of Effie, except for Tariq. And it's not. That's not the case. So I think that Effie is going to find herself by the end of the season ousted from this crew. And part of me wonders if she actually needs it. The next episode is titled Need versus Greed, and I think it's going to expose who actually needs to be in the game versus who's in the game because they're just being greedy and they want to make money. And I definitely think that Effie is one of the people who is being greedy at this point, because she has been able to make a lot of money, been able to sock away a lot of money, and I don't know if she actually needs it anymore. But in this episode, we just get readjusted to where they're at. Tariq and Effie are in a full-on relationship. She is reaffirming to him that, you know, she supports him, that he got somebody. Also, I think what's important is that what she starts the episode off with, she wants to have a talk with Tariq while they're packing up his room because he has to get out of the room. Brayden has been suspended indefinitely, which I'll talk about more in Brayden's section. But she makes a point of telling Tariq that she don't want to just be known around Stansfield as Tariq's girl. She wants to be her own woman and have her own identity. And the episode was titled Your Perception versus Your Reality. And I thought that it was interesting that they have Effie particularly do this, because it's one thing for her to be comfortable within their relationship. When you see when Kane rolls up on her and it's like trying to get her to basically turn on Tariq later on in the episode. And he's like, yeah, your man tried to keep you out. He don't want you part of the money. He ain't tell you this, he ain't tell you that. And she's like, my man, we good. It also makes you wonder at the top of the episode, are you actually good? Because you're also trying to create some type of distance, if not physically, then just within public perception, because you know all the rumors that are happening around Tariq. You know all of the talk and the narrative that's happening around Tariq, and you're making a point to him to let him know, like, this is what you want, which to me is kind of like a warning. It's a warning to how she's going to move so that he knows what her intentions are in reference to why she's moving the way that she's moving. And to me, it also got reaffirmed when we get to class. They're in the same class, which shout out to Professor Bennett, who we're going to talk about as well. She ain't saved no seat for him. She sit in one place and he got to come in and go sit by Diana in another place because there ain't no seat saved around him. And honestly, I don't know if it's just me, but that stuck out to me because Lauren always had a seat by her when it came to Tariq, even before they started dating. And I think that those things are being intentionally done by the writers and the creatives behind the show. The dialogue matters. The physical placement of people's matters. And all of this in reference to the setup. I think that Effie, in knowing what she did or thought that she did when it comes to Lauren, is also trying to be all in with Tariq, but not be completely in, so that she can fully catch herself when the fall comes, because she knows that it's actually coming. Because Tariq, y'all had a nice run and y'all's giving Bonnie and Clyde for a little bit. However, I think that Effie could possibly be one of the most dangerous characters for Tariq right now in the time that we're, in within this Power Book 2 universe. Now let's get into the Tejadas, and I'm going to start off talking about Lorenzo, because he's the most, well, I guess it's a tie between him and Diana for like the most inefficient, ineffective, useless Tejadas as of right now when the series starts. Lorenzo spends this episode, in my opinion, playing defense. Honestly, he is Monet's little whipping boy. She gonna talk to him however the hell she wants to talk to him, and he gonna have to just take it, because he's hiding a secret that he actually killed Zeke. Doesn't want that to come out, and again, he's playing defense and trying to stay ahead of any information that she actually gets. There's a little eerie moment where he sees Tariq talking to Monet at Zeke's memorial in Jersey retirement, but they don't spend a ton of time on that. It's really just to plant a seed. And then throughout the episode, he is again playing defense in that, like, Monet has smoke for him and Monet has smoke for Diana, and his way of kind of like appeasing what's happening to Diana and how Diana is kind of like being mistreated by Monet is to transfer her from St. John's over to Stansfield, allow her to live on campus, get her out the house. And it's like, this is the prime example of like how Diana became a daddy's girl, but ultimately what's going to wind up being Diana's demise as well. The Tejada family is coming upon another internal war, and this one is going to be bigger than we have ever seen before, and everybody's going to have to pick a side. And it's 100% clear after watching episode 1 that Diana is definitely going to pick Lorenzo's side, and he is going to make sure of that. In addition to sending her over to Stansfield, he makes sure to big her up, because she puts the memorial together for Zeke, and while Monet has nothing to say at it, he wants to go through and be like, yeah, you have done an amazing job, this is great, give her more time, blasey blasey boom. And honestly, it's watching Lorenzo and Diana interact that is like kind of like the most annoying thing for me. And I think I'm annoyed with Lorenzo because he was pegged to be such this big bad that was looming in prison, and then when he got out of prison, he was supposed to shake things up, but he couldn't even handle the back and forth with Kane. He couldn't even handle Mecca. He was so driven by rage and jealousy that he ultimately winds up making a mistake and kills Zeke. So I'm looking at this man like, yo, you're not the big bad villain that I was promised. Noma actually is. So honestly, you could probably exit stage right. And don't be surprised if we see him catch a bullet this season. I am going to be talking about who I think is going to be taking Lorenzo out, because again, the Tejada family is going to go to war with each other, and somebody's going to fall from their family because of it. Zeke is not the only one. It's not going to be the last one. And speaking about the daddy-daughter relationship, I'm going to go right into Diana. And she's probably one of the most annoying characters for me in this entire series. Her desire to be validated by Monet, her desire to get an atta girl all throughout this episode really chapped my ass, because girl, while you were not the one who killed Zeke, and she says this, you are the one who blew up all the information. And no, you're not necessarily wrong for outing Monet's secret love child by way of Zeke and creating all types of confusion, but you also can't be mad at the consequences and how people move towards you after the fact. Because if you cared this much what Monet thought, if you cared this much what people think, then why in the hell did you do it? Diana, for me, I had such high hopes at the start of the series for her to be a young, naive, potential queen pin in the making, and her to pick up knowledge as she goes along. But she is continuing to me to become a weaker and weaker character with even more knowledge that she gets. Like, she makes decisions for the most emotional, wrong reasons. She has no real purpose aside from seeking validation. And honestly, that's the stuff that gets you killed when it comes to this game. Not only that, she's going to pick the wrong side and picking the side with Lorenzo when the family goes to war. So like, I'm kind of like beyond over Diana. I would love to know y'all's thoughts on Diana in the comment section down below. Now, again, Lorenzo sends her over to Stansfield. She ends up in a class with Tariq. This is the new canonical studies class led by Professor Bennett. And, I made a point of how Effie didn't have no seat next to her, but Diana did. I'm very curious to see how Diana and Effie are going to interact moving forward, because they never really touched upon how Diana feels about Effie and Tariq actually being together. But given the personality that they have given Diana, in that she can be a little bit vindictive, she can be sneaky, she don't know that fat meat is greasy or that the stove is hot, she always trying to test something and do too damn much. I could totally see her getting into an issue with Effie and Tariq moving forward. But in this episode, the crux of it was just for her to end up at Stansfield, to create this memorial to help adjust the narrative that has been left with Zeke's death and the stains that's on his name. And then ultimately she has these big conflicts around, why won't Monet love me? Why won't she say good job? Girl, go to hell, because no. And moving on, let's talk about Monet. Monet is literally just grieving in this episode, y'all. Plain and simple. We don't really get to hear too much from her, except for when Kane comes back with the news about Noma, and she's just like, look, I wanted to be out of this game anyway. Y'all figure this out, because I don't give a good goddamn. And aside from that, at the top of the episode, she's handing over the keys to Dante's penthouse to Drew and Kane and telling them to go ahead and live there until she can figure out how to sell it. At the memorial, she is stricken with guilt and grief, and she can't even stay there to watch this Zeke's jersey be lifted up into the rafters. She's also recruiting Tariq to like give her information or find out stuff for her, and letting him know that he's the only person that she can actually trust, because she knows exactly where he was when Zeke was killed. I think that this is going to be this season is the birth of an even more ruthless Monet Tejada. She has clearly communicated what matters most to her and where most of her love lied, and it definitely lied with Zeke. And now that he's gone, her life will never be the same, and I don't even know if she's going to be able to love her other children the same. She's in conflict still with Diana. She's resenting Lorenzo because he ain't coming up with no answers. She's appreciative of Kane, because for the most part, Kane did what she asked towards the end of the last season and don't have no smoke for him, and she rarely has any smoke for Drew, because she still feels a little guilty about him getting shot. So she's definitely reeling. However, she is fuming, waiting to be able to find out who was responsible for Zeke's death so she could put a bullet in him. I think it's going to be either between Monet and Kane of who actually puts Lorenzo down. However, I'm going to go into that in another video, like I mentioned earlier on. We get to see a subdued Monet in this episode. However, that is not to be misconstrued in reference to her being weak. While I do think that she's in a vulnerable position and she's grieving, I do not think that she's actually weak. And this is about to be the beginning of the end for a lot of people. Again, the most exciting thing I'm looking to see her do is go head to head with Noma behind the love of Dante Spears, in which she didn't actually have. And again, I can't wait to see that. While Drew had very little going on in this episode, we learned enough. One, he's down. He's a part of the business. He's going to basically be Kane's right-hand man, as we get to see them navigating this episode together, and him trying to be good cop to Kane's bad cop with the potential connect. And then also, I think we're going to see the ever-present conflict for him in reference to professional and personal life, because Everett has not gone anywhere. And Kane makes a point of like, why is this Negro here when we're supposed to be talking business with this dude? Or matter of fact, he's supposed to be dead, and clearly he's not dead. And Drew is like, because I invited him here, basically like that's not going to actually happen. So I think that Kane is going to continue to press the issue when it comes to Everett and how he cannot be trusted. I think that Everett is going to continue to be a liability for Drew. However, Drew is definitely all in, and when it comes down to it, he's going to be the wild card of like, which side is he going to pick? If he's going to pick a side, I feel like he might pick Monet. However, I don't know why, but I feel like Drew is going to be the one that tries to remain neutral when the war happens with the Tejadas, and he's not going to die behind it, but it's definitely going to cause hella problems. And with that said, let's talk about the most important Tejada right now, and that is Kane. He is in the position that he has been dying to get to for such a long time. One, because Monet is grief-stricken and cannot actually lead. Lorenzo is too busy trying to play defense and focus on Monet and her grieving process. He has no potential connect. And basically, Kane is trying to get everything back up and running, from course correct imploding to Zeke's death, all of the things going on. He's trying to get back to business and cannot figure out in this episode why in the hell everybody else can't get get with the program. Again, I think that he's going to be the most dangerous Tejada in that he is not going to give up this seat of power that he has easily at all. And we already got the seeds in this episode of the tension that's still there between him and Lorenzo, because Lorenzo says, like, I'm not going to jump just because you say to do so. Meanwhile, Kane has already met Noma, been slapped, pistol whipped, and had the gun pointed to his head, had the terms laid out, and is the actual contact with the connect. This is not the Mecca situation. This is not just because you Poppy, you gonna be able to like have Kane handed over and think that everything gonna be okay. Do you want to keep your family alive or don't you? Like, at some point, Lorenzo dropped the ego, and this is going to be Kane's opportune time to cement his place at the head of this family. And again, I think it's between him and Monet of who's going to put Lorenzo down this season. But again, Kane is definitely the most important pivotal Tejada in reference to in episode 1. Now, as I mentioned, we have the run-in with Noma. Before they actually run in with Noma, he is completely out of the business of Tariq and Brayden. He do not want to work with original or white Urkel. Like, let's take a second specifically for Kane's one-liners, because the one-liners that he has for Brayden and Tariq are utterly hilarious. They're so well timed. Woody is amazing as Kane. I absolutely enjoy the performance every single time. But back to the breakdown. He has no plans of getting back into business with them, but ultimately winds up back in business with them because of Noma. But he does have intentions of causing dissent and deceit within the organization. Like the scene where he pulled up on Effie to try to tell her about how they back in business together, and Tariq wants to keep her out and she need to know that, to me gave, okay, it's something else going on here vibes. And I am of the camp that Effie and Kane have messed with each other before. I have a video that I did on it previously. However, I'm going to create an updated video to talk about what I think Effie and Kane's relationship is and how they're actually going to move moving forward, because I think it's going to be very, very interesting, and ultimately it's going to be very detrimental to Tariq. Now, last but certainly not least, it's our bad boy duo, Brayden and Tariq. At the top of the episode, we are left to assume that they are going to be spending quite a bit of time separated. We, of course, saw Tariq moving out of their room. The dean basically has gotten calls about everybody wanting Tariq off campus. They feel like he's a danger or could be a menace. Brayden's mama has nothing but smoke for Tariq when his sister's moving into the room next. However, nothing but death could keep them from each other, okay? Because Brayden coordinates a meetup with Kane to try to get them back in the business, and Tariq is not even privy to it, and that's when the whole Noma ambush happens that winds up tying them all together and pulling them all back into the business, which is what Brayden wanted to begin with. Aside from that, he is spending the rest of his time, because he's indefinitely suspended from Stansfield, he's going to be working at his father's hedge fund, Weston Holdings, dealing with a bunch of coked out finance bros, his raggedy ass brother Trace, his dope uncle Lucas, who we also got to keep our eyes on, and this fine ass cutie named Kiki, who he wants spit game to. I'm very excited for what we're about to see with Brayden this season. In this episode, we saw him towing a line still between he wants to be in this game, but he might not actually have the heart or the stomach for it, because Bash runs up on him and Tariq and threatens to like out them for course correct and lying in court and all of that kind of stuff. And Brayden's bright idea is to go get Kane and to try to get Kane to kill him. And Kane is like, nah, you gonna go ahead and kill him. I'm not going to do it. And that to me just points to Brayden wants to still be in. However, he's not fully ready to do it how it's going to need to be done if he's going to step up and be the Tommy to Tariq's ghost. However, Tariq knows what needs to be done. Even though part of me in rewatching the scene, y'all, when Tariq goes to talk to Bash and like give him a job, which was very ghost-like, the way that Tariq is like campaigning to not be like his father, however, he does everything that Ghost does, is beyond me. But Tariq shows up to offer Bash a job, supposedly, but then gets enraged by Bash basically calling him out and calling the thing a thing and actually telling all of the damn truth, and he winds up stabbing him to death. And that again shows exactly like how in it Tariq is versus what Brayden is currently incapable of. Now, aside from that, moving into like talking a little bit more about Tariq, it's interesting how invested he is only 3 months after Lauren's death in this whole relationship with Effie. His response in the conversation that she had about wanting to be her own woman and not wanting to just be known as Tariq's girl on campus was interesting, because he pointed out how he didn't actually want to change her. And in that he is similar to Ghost, I feel like while he could have the best intentions of not wanting to change his partner, part of what comes with dating these St. Patrick men is a conforming, is an adjustment that has to happen so that you can actually survive in life alongside them. And I think that's something that Tariq is not actually paying attention to in this episode. And then again, we know the deal about Effie. So I'm very concerned with him being all in and with her becoming the like number one person that he can trust and lean on, given the fact that she's basically still shaky ass ground. Now, Tariq was 100% fine with being out of the game. He felt at calm. He felt at peace. His mother and his sister are safe. Everything is all good. He might not have no money and or no car, but he could breathe easily. And that quickly changes. And it's, to me, now showing exactly how much the game is actually in him, because while he was 100% fine, as he told Kane, with like not actually being a part of the game, not actually doing this anymore, as soon as Noma put, terms on it, put a gun up to their head, he's like, yeah, I could use my judicial connects, I could use my law enforcement connects, we'll be the biggest distributors that you've ever had, we'll be bigger and better than Mecca. And it's just like, sir, weren't you just trying to be out like all of 2 seconds ago? I thought that Tariq played a very interesting part in episode 1, in that he's becoming the glue and he's really finding himself in a lot of ways. Like I enjoyed the scene with him and Monet, and him reassuring Monet that once he knows any information, she's going to know. I think that they are going to solidify their relationship a lot more in this season, which is also going to create additional problems for him and Kane, even though Kane is seemingly like trying to grin and bear it while still pressing up on Effie to create a little bit of conflict with Tariq. And then other than that, Tariq had a moment with Davis McClain to keep Davis in his pocket to find out information about Noma, and he's dangling over Davis's head about how he's the one who's responsible for the ring actually making it to auction. Now, aside from those main characters and all that they had going on, we had a few new characters introduced in this episode for this season, and that's Salim, Professor Bennett's TA. Professor Bennett is replacing Carrie Milgram and Jabari and teaching ethics. I gotta go back and look because I don't even know what the hell her ass is teaching. However, it's given. She has a some type of relationship, seeming like a previously romantic relationship with Rashad Tate, and Rashad Tate looked like he want to spin the block a little bit. So when they ran into each other, it was very clear that there was still something there with them. And then we have Kiki Travis at the hedge fund, who Brayden is probably going to press up on, and she's going to resist. However, they probably going to wind up together at some point. And that's it, y'all. That is all of, oh, actually, that's not it. Tate. I forgot about Tate. I did this in my first thoughts video. And y'all, I will be dropping first thoughts videos first before these extended breakdowns on my second channel. So if you want what I think moments after the episode premieres, you can check out my second channel, subscribe to that. It'll be linked in the description box down below or the cards above, as well as you can join the membership and you'll get into my close friends and be able to see what on my IG story, what my responses are, what my reactions are in the moment of me watching the actual episode. But Rashad Tate, baby, is running for Congress. He comes to Tariq's aid in this episode at the top to get Tariq housing, and he lets him know that this is going to be an IOU. And then we get to see him again going into the memorial where he gets to run into Professor Bennett, and there's clearly going to be a little rendezvous happening there. The biggest point that needs to be made about him is that he's talking about his congressional run is getting a little bit more complicated, a little bit more hectic than he had planned, and he's going to need Tariq's skill set, which means he's going to need some shady dealings to put him in this office. And that's about right for, potential Congressman Tate. Now, that is the very, very end of my breakdown. All of my thoughts, theories, and predictions have been included. Y'all hit the subscribe button if you're new here, and make sure that you hit the like button because y'all done hung around for 50 minutes to watch this whole video and listen to everything that I had to say about the entire episode. I hope you enjoyed this breakdown. I will be breaking it down every single week right here on Erica Vane TV as well as on Erica Vane TV 2. And look out throughout the week for the special subject videos which I talk about